Hello, folks. Welcome back to my channel. This is Hortown, and finally, I have another episode review for you of Supernatural. Today, we're going to be taking a little look at the sixth episode of the first season called Skin. The episode originally aired on October 18th, 2005, on the WB. It was directed by Robert Duncan McNeil, and it was written by John Shiban, as well as Sarah Gamble, and last but not least, Rael Tucker. So those are the main so that's the director and the writers, and then we have the actors. So we have the main ones, and we have another one which is who played a big important role. So we have Jared Padalecki, Jensen Ackles, as well as Amy Gray Bow. So those are the main actors of this episode, and there are others which we'll get to later. But what is this episode about? So in this episode, basically, Sam and Dean are going to be traveling to St. Louis, Missouri, right? After a college student of Sam, a friend of Sam's, who was a college student, a buddy of his, is basically has been accused of having committed a pretty gruesome murder, right? So since Sam kind of kept in touch with his former college friends, he basically, got the news, and, as he checks out his PDA at the beginning, I believe, right? This PDA of his, he decides to go and check it out because apparently he was accused of having committed a murder, a gruesome murder of his girlfriend, but it turns out that he apparently was, with his sister at the time of the murder. So unless he could be in two places at once, he most likely didn't do it, right? So they decide to go there and check it out and investigate a little bit. So they go and meet the sister. Her name is Becky, who is played by Amy Graybow. Or is it Graybow? I'm not sure. So basically they go there and they try to, obviously, Sam and her reconnect since they were old friends. And then Dean is introduced to her. And they start to kind of work together a little bit on that and try to find out, gather up some clues as they usually do when they go from town to town to investigate any kind of supernatural, occurrence or activity, any monster kind of thing. They have to, do their homework, the groundwork and all of that. So they try their level best to come up with some kind of logical, rational explanation, for lack of better terms, to explain this, how this could have happened, right? So they're gonna find out that it turns out that, I don't want to spoil too much or anything like that, but they're gonna be hunting down I think I have to say it to a certain extent, spoiler alert, not so much of a spoiler, actually kind of is, so please skip the next few seconds if you don't want me to spoil it too much or anything. For you, that is, if you haven't watched the episode, but it's basically a spoiler coming now. Shapeshifter, right? For those who don't know what a shapeshifter is, it's something that is some kind of a creature that can assume the form of the shape of anything, anybody, right? So it's basically how that creature is able to basically pose as this person, to appear to be that person, while in fact they're not, right? So as the episode goes on, it's going to be very interesting as the creature is going to change and morph over and over again to the point where it even becomes like one of the main characters, is going to be the shapeshifter's, appearance, right? So this is how I will end, this without too much spoiling or anything like that. So yeah, this is pretty much how it goes, right? The shapeshifter is gonna go and morph and turn and so on and so forth. So this is pretty much how it is. So Skin, what do you think about this episode? Sorry if I'm doing a lot of coughing. I'm just trying to clear my throat at the best of my ability, so I'm loud and clear for you. But Skin is a pretty good episode. I really enjoyed it, especially the whole kind of, shapeshifter plot. I thought that this was pretty interesting. And there's something that's gonna involve Dean a lot in this episode, something, you know, something big. And those who have watched it, you know what I'm talking about. But basically Dean is gonna be it's gonna be kind of personal to him for reasons that I won't mention since I don't want to spoil too much or anything. But I think that this episode was pretty good, especially with Sam. Kind of, we learn a little bit more about, his former life as a college student, his friends, and the people he used to hang out with. I thought this was pretty good, right? I really enjoyed this episode, and at some point there's going to be some kind of a manhunt, and Dean and Sam are going to have to kind of lay low for a while and, not being seen too much. I thought it was pretty interesting. This whole episode it definitely works. It definitely has a lot of cool things, a lot of interesting concepts, with the whole kind of, morphing thing at some point with the shapeshifter, its abilities. I thought that this was pretty good. Also, how to kill it, and this is a pretty good, interesting, episode, an interesting storyline, right? Now there's some there's some pretty gruesome scenes in there, especially some body horror when you have the shapeshifter transforming, morphing. I thought that this was absolutely gross. You see the teeth kind of falling out. And for those who are, it's not for the faint of heart. So if you haven't watched a lot of supernatural episodes and, you basically get a little bit queasy around the sight of blood and you kind of get scared easily. Yes, this is definitely not a good episode for you because it has a lot of, gruesome scenes, which is pretty intense, especially for a show that, aired at that time in the WB. Now, it's not something you get to see every day, right? It's horror theme related, right? It's horror material right there. So it reminds me of the movie called, I think it was The Howling, right? It's so, yeah, it gets pretty gruesome at times, at points, right? So definitely not a good episode to watch if you haven't watched it already, right? So, anyhow, yes, I thought that this was a pretty good episode, especially there's going to be a scene involving a big dog, a big black dog, and I'm afraid of dogs, and that's the neighbor's dog, and there's something relevant about that too, but I won't tell you what it is because I don't want to spoil too much or anything. But this was pretty good, so really enjoyed this episode up until the very end with some kind of, I guess it's not really, spoiling too much, but some quote unquote funeral. And then this was pretty good. I really enjoyed this episode, especially the brothers at the beginning, as you can tell from the picture here at the gas station. They're gonna be arguing whether to go or not, in St. Louis. And well, they decide to, yeah, I think that they were initially heading to Bisbee, Arizona, if I'm not mistaken, but then they turned the car around. I thought that was pretty neat, pretty funny. But yeah, let's move on to the actors before wrapping this up. So we have Jared Padalecki, Jensen Ackles, Amy Graybow. As I said, she played Rebecca Warren, Amy Graybow. Then we have Peter Shinkoda, who plays Alex, Murat Green, who plays Anchorman, Anita Brown plays Lindsay, Shireen Haas Blake plays Bystander, and last but not least, Alex Holtz plays Zach Warren. So they were all pretty awesome, but my favorite ones definitely being the main three ones, Jared, Jensen, and Amy, were pretty awesome, right? There's good chemistry between them as well. Especially since at some point, the cover is that Dean is a cop, right? And he's trying to, investigate it, even though it's kind of out of his jurisdiction because he says that he's from Bisbee, Arizona or something like this. That is pretty funny. but he acts like, he says at some point detective actually or something like that. I thought it was pretty funny. There's a lot of humor in the show, which keeps it kind of light-hearted, which is good too, right? In light of the scariness of it all. But yeah, really awesome episode up until the very end with the big twist and everything. Yes, and there's a big twist in this episode. I won't tell you what it is, but I'll let you find out for yourself. So really enjoyed it. So Skin, if I were to rate this episode on a scale from 1 to 10, I'd probably give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. Really good episode. Really liked it. Really enjoyed the heck out of it. It's really interesting up until the very end. And there's, at some point with the lair and, trying to find the shapeshifter and his, where it's hiding. I thought that this was pretty good too. It's pretty gruesome. It's pretty scary. There are a lot of scenes, taking place at night in this episode. So it's really scary. But yeah, 8 out of 10 for me for this episode. What about you folks? What did you think about it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next review. In the meantime, folks, stay safe. Goodbye. Take care. This is Howard Town signing off.